Man, class 9, that's crazy. Time flies when you're meeting twice a week. Yeah, I think we just have one more after this. And to be honest, I don't know if there's a lot to cover next week. So maybe next week I'll do like a little bit of like a demo. Maybe, I don't know. I'll do like the walking ball again, or I'll do something. We'll see. If you guys have suggestions, let me know. Alrighty. So today we're going to be continuing along our workspace of tools. Last week we ended on the mirror options. Today we're going to pick up at the temporary pivot. That's a pretty awesome tool. And to help demonstrate, I am going to, here, I will use the IK arm example. Cool. And let me just set my filters. Alrighty. Excuse me. Okay. What the temporary pivot does is exactly what it's called. It creates a temporary pivot for whatever you're using. It's really useful. You may have seen like the actual example on the tooltips website for Animbot, or you may have seen another example, or you may even run into it yourself where, let's say you have an IK, and let's say it's resting on a table like this, right? This is basically an example in the website, but let's say it's resting on a surface like this, and you don't have a control from right here, but you want to be able to rotate from where it's being locked down to. Using a temporary pivot to put down here allows you to do that, and I will show you an example of that. So let's say, for example, that let's pretend there's an imaginary table right there. And if we click this, create temp pivot, let me reset that real quick. If we create a temporary pivot, it gives us this, it lets us know that we're affecting the pivot by giving us that little indication of the manipulator changing, like the box goes empty in the middle and there's a circle in the middle. That lets us know pretty much universally that we're affecting the pivot. So if we'll put it down here and we just go to our rotate, you'll see that we have a rotation from right down there. But what I don't like is the rotation on the X form. Let me go back to toggle edit, reset that. Oh no, actually, oh yeah, I could just do that. But there we go. It would give us a temporary pivot from wherever we set it from. So let's say, for example, let's put a few keys down first. That way it might be a little bit more clear. For whatever reason, we want to, let's say, rotate from the base. Pretty much like how like an FK arm would work. Excuse me. There we go. So I can pretty much rotate from here, and it'll save the key. And I can just keep going and going with all of these keys. Cool. So now, once you select your arm back, you won't get the pivot that you were using just previously. In order to get that pivot back, you have to press this edit pivot again, and you'll see that, what's the normal my shortcut? Yeah, there we go, okay. You'll see that this manip will kind of travel with the way that the keys have been set now, right? In order to get a stable pivot, instead of just having this, float around like it does, I will show you in another example. Let me delete these. And then I should note that this next one is probably the one that I use the most. So I'm going to skip over a few right here. Let me set keys first, 5, 10, 15, 20. The one that I use the most, whenever I do use this tool, the one that I use the most is the world pivot space. I'll put it here. And then when I rotate, yeah, cool. All right, so when I go back to my controller and I go back to my world pivot, oh no, I just messed it up. Sorry. Let's try that again. The world space pivot, put it there. Cool, yeah. So what I like about this one is that even though like I'll step through my keys, this manipulator won't like change like the other one was doing. Let me, I can circle, I mean, I can cycle through and then this manipulator won't adjust its position based off of the information after I set the keys down. This is the one that I find the most useful, especially, actually I've had to use it for the exact example that's on the tooltips. Let's say you've got a character swinging on a pole, swinging on something, right? And they're hanging onto it like from right here. Setting a world pivot right along this pole that they're swinging through, that way you get the whole character swinging around like that, is super, super useful. In retrospect, or like if you can, ideally I wouldn't set up a scene that way because that's a lot to clean up. I would try and look for some kind of offset node that I'd even start before animating and put it where where you would be rotating. Let me just show you an example real quick. So let's say if our character was rotating around a pole, or like hell was holding onto a pole like this. Oops. What you could technically do, if this had like a controller here, what you could technically do, right, is you could select pretty much all the upper body controls, or even the whole body if you need, create a world pivot, and then put it right where, excuse me, let's go to the side view. Yeah. Temp pivot. Oh no, do I not see it because of the clipping plane? Yep, I don't. Awesome. Okay, that's fine. I'm just gonna eyeball it. Or maybe I'm not. Jesus. Those two, world space pivot. And let's just say, sure, let's just say right there. Right? You could technically rotate the entire character like this using a temp pivot. And you know, your calculations would be correct, right? And they'd represent themselves as you imagine they would in the graph editor, right? It would make sense. But if I were animating the character and you'd be able to see the full body of the character flipping around this like pole like this, if your character has it, I would use another offset controller to put right here. That way, once your character is on this pole, you can use that offset controller to rotate this character around this point. I've had a lot more success that way as opposed to using a temp pivot, only because after this point, or in the shots that I've done like this, after this point, the character is always doing something. And so, you know, using the extra layout node will help me keep it organized into chunks that way. But again, you know, if you find that the global pivot works for you, great, go for it. So I'm gonna actually take a few steps back here. I might have jumped the gun a little bit. I just wanted to show you guys the one that I use more than the other ones. Okay, so if we go through here, we've got a few options. You can see that the next option is using the last object in the selection as the pivot. So let's say we select these two, and we can select this tool right here. Last object would be our IK goal. So we can rotate off of here if we wanted to. The same can be said if you do have a selection. So when you have a selection of things in Maya, it basically generates a bounding box, right? An invisible bounding box, right? And it'll kind of average out and find out where the center of all those objects are. So when it says temp pivot centered, that center is where it's going to be rotating from. The center of all of the objects that would have selected, of that bounding box, that invisible bounding box I was telling you guys about, right? So it would be right here. This pivot is where these two are, this pivot is the exact middle, the exact center of these two objects, because these were the only two objects that were selected. And you may have seen me earlier do this, like if I, when I first selected the tool, it already had a pivot stored. So what I had to do was, like after I went into manipulation mode, if I wanted to edit again, you know, you can toggle edit pivot and it'll give you that manipulator again. This will let you know again that you're only affecting the pivot. And you guys saw me do this earlier as well. You can reset it if you want. You even have the channels here. If you want to put exact coordinates, and it should be noted that these are world space coordinates. So if I were to zero all of these out, it'd go back to origin. But yeah, that's pretty much the temp pivot. Super handy. This, I think it's a tuning fork. I'm not sure, but it's like it's a micro manipulator, or it's the micro manipulator tool. Maybe it's not a tuning fork. I don't know. Anyway, sometimes when you're dealing with something really delicate, maybe something in the face or something with the fingers, or like, you know, whatever, maybe your character has some business to do and it's really, really fine detail. What this does, it pretty much allows your manipulator to like be affected by like only a fraction of what you're moving it at. So normally this would be 1-to-1 and be pretty big movements, but this allows you to move it in even smaller increments if you need to. You know, those instances are really rare, or they may not be. It really depends on what you're doing. I haven't found a particular use for it, but you know, I can see it being useful for maybe if a character is writing something and, you know, you have a lot of finger stuff to do, or if a character is using chopsticks, maybe using chopsticks. Something along those lines that need really like fine control. We have the global offset. I call this 3D Max tool. For anyone that's familiar with 3D Max, this is pretty much what it does when you turn off auto key. But okay, let's say I've got my arm going up and down, bop, 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 right? And I want to globally shift it. I want to globally shift my animation to a new area or new coordinates, or I want to change it somehow overall. I want it to affect all of my animation, but it's not as easy as maybe just grabbing the Y, grabbing the X, and grabbing the Z. You know, maybe sometimes you need to do it like, you know, in a way that would affect all three axes, but not equally. And maybe you don't know what those are, and so instead of having to like go through the graph editor and kind of inch each axis one by one, you can use this global offset. So what this tool does is once you click it, it'll make your timeline blue, and this will let you know that you're in like global edit mode, right? So after it's in this mode, you can pretty much move it and then deselect it, and then it'll take the movement that you just made into account, and it'll recalculate all of the keys that you'd set. So you'll see now that it's doing the same motion, but it's doing it in the spot that I moved it to after I did my global offset. You know, this is really useful for, let's say if you're doing, let's say if you're doing a walk, or if you have a walk cycle, or if it's walking forward, you know, globally offsetting like the hips and the feet is a great way to, you know, to offset them without having to use the root control or anything like that, or maybe you don't have another offset control that you can use. Yeah, that's really handy for big changes like that. Okay. Motion Trail, my favorite tool. I use this thing constantly. Oh, awesome. And Maya loves me today. I use the motion trail tool constantly. I'll use it even when I'm in blocking. I'll use it as early as that, and I'll use it all the way up until polish. Come on, go away. Sorry, don't mind that. That's my custom tool set. I will update later. Okay. Set my project, and then I will open the walking ball example again. Cool. And then I just want curves. And then, alrighty. So, motion trail. Ta-da! Okay, so if you've never worked with the motion trail before, I'll go over the basics of it really quickly. What it does is, once you select the controller, like I just did, I selected the cog on this guy and I hit the motion trail tool. What it'll give you is, it'll give you this visual representation of where that object is traveling in space, right? And so you can see here that it's pretty much blue, it is blue for the entire thing. There are two colors normally that are represented in the motion trail, right? So if you'll see, if I scrub forward, the green is where it came from, and the blue is where it's going. And you'll see that these thicker dots right here, these represent my keyframes. See, 16, and then if I go to 19, and then these smaller dots right here represent the frames in between. They're my in-betweens, right? And so this is a great way to check spacing. Spacing is one thing is very important to me. And so, I check my spacing as early as blocking, and that's why I like to use the motion trail tool a lot. So let me go over some of these features, actually. I'm going to tear this off. And so you can see, in order to create a motion trail, you have to have something selected. And you can do more than one. So let me remove this first. And let's say I want my feet and the cog. And then it'll make one for each. And then, and obviously, as you can see, for as many objects as I have selected, it's giving me that many sets of colors. That way I won't get confused, right? Blue and greens for the cog, yellow and purples for the right foot, and cyan and fuchsia or pink is for the left foot. I would actually want to ask for this, but in order to remove them, you have to have them selected. You can't just hit remove. You'll get that error. So let's select and remove. And then let's just put this one. And then let's say that you only want a certain area. You only want a certain area for your object to be tracked. You can set the range just by selecting your keys. And then if you have the object selected, you can select your range. And let's say I only want it for this first step. I can hit set range, and it'll only give me up to frame 13, if I so choose. Ooh, this one's nice. Okay, cool. So let's remove this one. I'm gonna set this entire one, that way I have it all the way up to 25. And so you can see here that there is an option for offset. And after I go to the offset, it'll give me a list of all of the motion trails that I have created in the scene at the moment. So if I select that one, and then I can offset it. Oops, I'm sorry. If I select that one, no. Hang on, let's try this again. Motion trail, offset. There we go. I can offset it to the front. So what this is helpful for is, this is actually really helpful for tracking facial arcs. Let's say if you want to track the arc of an eyebrow or a nose or something, and you don't want to turn on the face controls or you don't want to dig for it, a lot of the times what I'll do is I'll make a motion trail for the head, and then I'll bring the offset out to the tip of the nose. That way, I can track my rotations. Uh-oh, please don't crash. I'm just gonna wait like a good person and hope that Maya is not angry at me anymore. Or maybe I should just crash it. Yeah, okay. Okay, that's fine. Yep, I'm gonna crash it. No time to wait for that. So, speaking of hoping for less technical difficulties than on Monday, so much for that. Okay. Go figure. It's on my favorite tool too. Oops, excuse me, set project. Sorry, this is a force of habit. I think my project is set already, but I just want to make sure. Curves, don't give me polys. I'll do this real quick. All right, cool. So where were we before we were rudely interrupted? Okay. I use this offset to track, like I said, the arc on a nose, or maybe if it's, if you are animating a, let's say, a weapon, and the weapon is attached to the hand, what you can do is if the weapon doesn't have a control, you can just put a motion trail on the IK of the wrist, and then drag the locator to the tip of the weapon, so it'll track the very tip of it. So you make sure you're getting good arcs when you do that. Yeah, see, you can track this is a great way to track the rotations too. Let's push my RX, and then let's see what that looks like. Cool. It doesn't want to update for some reason, but that's okay. There we go. There we go. See, it'll track the rotations like that. So it's really handy for, I'll even use it for torso. I'll track the actual torso, right, the center of the torso, but then I'll drag it out so I can, or I'll drag the offset out so I can track my RY, and I can track my my RY and RX in conjunction with each other. Yeah, moving right along. Let's keep this up again. And I'm going to move the camera. No, you guys can't see that, I don't think. All right, let's remove that. Cool. I think that's pushed still, but that's okay. Okay. What else? Ooh, orientation tracking. Okay. This one is really handy too. This is another way of tracking the actual rotations. I personally like dragging out the offset because it's a little bit cleaner. But what you can do is if you turn on orientation tracking, you hit create, you'll get the 3 axes. Let me hide this real quick. You'll get the 3 axes that the object is rotating in every single frame. And you can see that it's, it could be a lot to look at, which is why I personally like the offset. Let me give you guys another example, actually. Let's use, I'm going to keep this open. I normally have this bound to a hotkey, but we haven't covered that yet, so I won't do that just yet. Here we go. And then let's put on orientation tracking. Okay, so you can see that I can track the, the RY, my RX right here. and then I can track my RZ. And if you want to change this, you can, if you go here, it'll give you the options of toggling on and off which ones you actually want to see. Let's say just my RY. And if you want to adjust the size, you can go to this, I guess this, I don't know if it's really a drop down, but this extra menu, sorry, it's in the way of my camera. Select that, and then you should be able to, oh, I'm sorry. Here. It should give you the manipulator to adjust the size. No, doesn't want to. Offset, orientation options, give me back all three. No. Huh. This normally gives you like a translation manipulator that you should be able to, that you can, what's this? Scale in, or push in, I should say. Okay, anyway, I guess we'll get back to that later. Cool, all right, so, okay. Actually, let me, oh, is my offset still on? It is. Why is it remembering my offset? I don't want my offset anymore. That's so odd. I swear I've been getting the weirdest problems. Okay, let's create one right here then. Cool. Okay. This is for the squash and stretch control. Okay, style, that's where we were. So you can change the way that your motion trail looks. The default one is thick. I like this one. The like earlier ones, there's like a dashed one that you can see. It'll give you a different color every other frame, and you can see that the pattern changes from red to blue to the keys or to the frames before, and pink and green to the keys or the frames afterwards, sorry. And you can see the white dots represent the keyframes. I don't know why oh yeah, okay, I'm on cycle, that's why. There's dots. This is like the Maya default one. If you guys have used the Maya default one, it pretty much looks a lot similar to this. There is the thick one, which is the default one. This is the one that A-Tools looked like. Pretty close to the Maya one. Okay, these are awesome, the temperatures. So actually what I want to do is I'm going to open up a clean rig to show these ones. It might make for a better, actually, spacing temperature. I might be able to do it. Let's see. Spacing temperature, create, giving my offset again. Okay, anyway. Okay. Actually, no, I don't. All right, yeah. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna open up a new rig. That way, it'll be a lot more clear. Alrighty, here we go. So this dude, oh no, okay, cool. I'm going to set 2 keys, one here and one here. My TY for this one will be down here. This one will be right here, like that. And so you can tell I'm easing out and I'm fasting into this key. I will create a motion trail, and you'll see, actually, let me push this by a lot. There we go. So you can see that if I have the, if I have the spacing temperature checked, it'll give me this kind of representation of how drastic the spacing is based off of the warmness of the color. So the coolest color being blue, right? You can see that there's not a lot of spacing change at all down here. And as it starts to get warmer, it starts to go from green up here to yellow to orange and to red. You can see red over here is over these two frames, and it's the biggest amount of spacing. The warmer it is, if we're doing spacing temperature, the warmer the color or the hotter the color, the bigger the spacing. And you know what, let's see. This might be even more clear. Yeah, there we go. So it's a little bit easier to see the colors. You can see there's a little bit amount of blue over here because it's over those two frames. Then green, light green, yellow green, yellower green, yellow, 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 orange, and then red right here. Cool. Ooh, gimbal lock temperature. Okay, this is a good one. It's a cool feature. I haven't necessarily found a use for it myself, but it might be good to use and to turn on maybe once you're going from blocking to splining. And you know, if you don't have, for some reason, like I don't, you don't have Smart Euler turned on, we'll go over that too. So I know you guys are familiar with gimbal lock already based off of the past lectures, I hope. So I'm gonna set two keys here, one at 0 and one at 10. I'm gonna rotate in my gimbal mode. And then I'm going to purposely put myself into gimbal lock right here. Cool. All right, so if I turn on gimbal lock temperature and I create one, oops. Oh, that's not fun. Gimbal lock temperature. There we go. Okay, cool. Okay, so normally it doesn't matter that that I have a translate here. The only reason I brought out the translate is so that you can see the actual motion trail. Because if I had the translate the same, like you wouldn't be able to see, or if I had him not moving and just rotating in space, you wouldn't be able to see the motion trail. So just for example's sake, I'm going to bring him out in space so you guys can actually see what's happening. So you guys saw that I rotated and purposely put myself in gimbal lock on frame 10, right? And so what the gimbal lock temperature does is the warmer the color, the closer you are getting into gimbal lock. And you can see that represented right here. I'm not in gimbal lock at all at 0. And then at 10, I rotated myself into gimbal lock on purpose, which is why right here at the end of the motion trail, it's red, the hottest temperature. I can see this being useful maybe like when you're, like I said, coming out of blocking, going into splining. Maybe you hit spline, and then you turn on a motion trail and you put it on gimbal lock temperature. That way you can just see where problem areas might occur, especially like in your hips or in your torso or anything like that. It'll show you where like you want to fix those before you get into polishing or before you really start getting into spline. It'll be like a dead giveaway of like where like funkiness is happening in your rotations. Noise temperature. So this one, I can't really see this one being super useful. Then again, you know, maybe I've just never found a particular use for it. Maybe some people have. So I'm going to set a few keys here real quick just to demonstrate my point. I'm going to move him forward in space. And then I'm also going to put some noise on my TY. I'll use the noise wave. Let's put it on linear. Cool. All right, there. All right, so let's create a motion trail and let's put it in noise temperature. There. So the funny thing about this one is, oh, this is based off of, this one's not based off of camera. Oh, that's depth. Okay. It will calculate, the biggest amount of noise you have, or the more noise it's picking up, the hotter the temperature will be. The only reason that it's not hot here is that this is the last key in the chain, or the last key in the timeline. Since there are no keys after this, it's not considered as noise because it's not going anywhere past off of this key. So you can see from right here to down here, right? There's the differentiation in noise right here, from like red to green to red to green. And then from here, it starts to cool down. And like I said, only because there's no keys after that. Yeah, that's what noise temperature does. And then I'm going to show you depth temperature. Depth temperature calculates how close you are to the camera. And what's interesting about this one is, like you might have heard me say earlier, it changes based off of the camera. It's it's smart in that sense. And so you can see that once I get closer to the ball here, right on frame 10, and I scrub, right? The closer the ball is to the camera, the hotter the temperature. Further away it is, the cooler the temperature. But if I go to the opposite way, you can see that the motion trail will update automatically. It's pretty cool. This is a good one if if you like to animate only in one viewport, and like if you only like to animate in like the shot cam, and for whatever reason you don't really want to calculate depth or move into another viewport, a really quick way of finding out how much like room you have from the camera is using the depth temperature. It's pretty cool. Okay, I think that's all the styles. The frames before and after. You can pretty much, so by default, right, it'll give you the entire timeline. You can set the range if you want, but you can also set how many frames are being calculated at a time. So if I want 3 frames before and after, you'll see it'll only hit, since I'm on frame 5, it'll only hit 1, 2, okay, well, I guess it updates automatically, but it'll only give me up to frame 2, and it'll only give me up to frame 8, since it's on 3. I normally like to have it on all, and then I work on my shots in chunks. I'll do it in, in sections. Transparency fall off. The further away the keys are from your active key, the more transparent it'll get, which is kind of nice, especially if you got a lot going on and it's a long shot and they're doing like real crazy stuff. This transparency one is a handy one because, like, let's say from the camera, let's put some crazy stuff here. He's going that way. He's going that way. He's going that way. He's going that way. And then right here, he's like going there. If I don't have the transparency fall off, you can see that it might get confusing. Like, this is only 10 frames, right? So if I had this maybe times 5, you can see how it could get confusing really fast. So it's having the transparency fall off is kind of nice. And then let's, in order to demonstrate this one, let me Z. Let's put this by a lot. And then let's, right here. The next one I'm going to show you guys is camera space and object space. I love camera space, but you just got to be careful because you can get in a lot of trouble. All right, cool. So let's see. I made this camera from my viewport. Select my camera, please. Yep. And then I'll name this my shot cam. Oops. Cool. And then let's say, whoa, I don't want that one. I want this one. Cool. All right, so let's say, where do I normally have my shot cam? Right here, right? Yes. Wait. Yeah, shot cam. Okay, cool. And I'll put my perspective here. All right, so let's say that we'll start there, and then this will be my moving camera. There we go. And then I'm going to set my keys to linear. All right, so there's my camera move. Kind of have our guy in frame all the time. I'll just make sure that we do. Say here, and then here, and then here. There we go. There. Now he's always in frame. Let's push him a little bit forward. There we go. Okay, cool. So I got a motion trail on this guy already. And then by selecting camera space, what this will do is it will make the motion trail only relative to the space that the object travels in the camera view. It's pretty much like a motion trail, but like a 2D motion trail. And it might be a little bit more helpful if I put some arc on this guy. So let me make him go upward. Come on. And let me, I don't know why it's taking forever, but force update. There we go. That's a little bit more obvious. So you can see in my perspective view, right, that, you know, he's moving forward and then he's just moving upward right here. Just like my curve, my TY curve suggests. But you can see that in my shot cam, you know, these curves, these motion trails look nothing alike. But this is the amount, or this is the space at which he's moving in screen space. And it might be more obvious if I turn on my field guide. You can see that he's moving from like box 11 to box 3, box 3 to box 5, box 5 to, let's say, what is that, 7 or 8? You can think of like a camera space motion trail being calculated just by like field guide units. Cool. And then actually object space, I'm actually not sure what object space does. Oh, right, okay. Let me see if I have an example that this might work for. Let me try the ball walking guy. So what this will do is if you set a motion trail to object space, it's going to track its motion based off of the object alone, even regardless of whether it's in a chain or not. So let's say if you're doing like an FK chain of like a hair or a cape or something, and normally if you select the very last control of the cape, right, you're going to get the motion trail based off of all of the other joints in the chain, right? If you turn on object space, you're only going to get the calculations of based off of that object only, and you won't get like the additive values that you're getting down the chain. And this guy doesn't actually have a lot in here, so I don't know if he could be, or he will work. What space is he in? No. Darn. I wish I had a better example for this, dude. I'll try and find a good example for this for next week, and then I'll bring it back. Let's keep going. The more menu is, you guys saw me do this quite a bit already. In case your motion trail isn't updating for some reason, you can just hit force refresh and it'll update for you. Except for this one, because for some reason it's reading my offset and it won't give it back to me. Okay, anyway. And then these options right here, I normally leave them on balance. I normally leave it at default because it's, it's basically fine. These are performance options. So there are 3 kind of settings, right, for the performance. If you leave it on faster update, when you're in the graph editor, it will allow you to adjust the spacing, and it will adjust the motion trail visually faster. But then once you're done adjusting, it might lag a little bit based on how heavy the rig is. It might lag a little bit before you see the rig represent that change, right? Whereas on the other side, if you do faster interaction, you might see the space that you're working with. You might see only the space that you're working with, or only the key you're working with. I'm sorry, only the key that you're working with be reflected immediately, but then it's going to lag a little bit after to update the entire motion trail. Like I said, balance is normally great. It's more than enough. I haven't really found a need to change this. If something is really bogging me down, I'll either suspend, which we'll get to next. I'll suspend the viewport, or I'll hide a bunch of things while I'm working. Okay, so that is the motion trail. I love motion trail. Suspend viewport. So like I was saying, when you're working with really heavy models, or when you're working with something that's really dense, let's say maybe like the face, or maybe you're working with a character that you want to keep smooth for some reason. Maybe you're not getting a good visual representation of what the character really looks like unless they're smooth. And when you're adjusting things in the graph editor, unfortunately it doesn't happen with this guy because he's super light. Normally when you're adjusting things in the graph editor, before you start moving things, right? Or before this key starts to even move, you'll see that there's like a lag, or like Maya will lock up just for a little bit before it actually starts to move. When that's happening, what's happening really is Maya is calculating the value that you're moving it at, and also showing that visual representation in your viewport here at the same time. There's a lot of like processing happening right there. So in order to kind of speed that process up, when you're working in your graph editor and stuff, you can just suspend the viewport. And what will happen is, like, you can make your change, and then you can turn it off, and then the updates will happen afterwards. I've used this sometimes on really, really big, and I'll say big, like actually big, like giant robots and stuff. I've used it on them only because most of the time in my blocking, or like in my earlier stages, I'd have set the keys already, but when I convert it to either like auto tangent or like a smooth tangent or whatever, it'll still give me some weirdness. And so I'll suspend the viewport and I'll go through all of my curves and clean them up. Just by going through and like this, and like this, and then like this, cleaning up pretty much my tangent handles. And then after I'm done, I'll enable the viewport, and then it'll clean everything up for me, or it'll update everything at the same time. Okay, let's see. Ooh, time bookmarks. Okay, this is pretty cool. This allows you to kind of organize your timeline a little bit more, and it makes jumping from one section to another easier. So let's say for example that I just want to focus, or I want to separate this out into two chunks, right? His first step and then his second step. What I can do is I can shift select these frames and I can hit time bookmark, and it'll give me the same UI as you get when you do selection sets. So let's say I'll name this first step, and then I'll keep that red. You can see down here that it's represented through this red bar, and you see that it's named right there in my first step, and then I'll do one for my second step. Second step, and I'll label that green. This is really helpful if you've got a long shot or maybe multiple characters, and you want to kind of divide where what is what. And so, you know, along with like setting or creating bookmarks, what you can do also is, first thing you can do is turn it on and off, only because this can get pretty cluttered sometimes if you have a lot of keys down there, especially if you have like entire characters selected. You know, it can get pretty muddy. This button, which is pretty much the same as this button right here, it'll allow you to go to, oh no, I'm sorry, it's not. The default button will let you create a bookmark. This button right here will allow you to go to the bookmark of the frame that you're on. So if I'm anywhere between frame 1 and 13, and I hit go to bookmark, it'll bookmark, or it'll crush my time slider and my range slider to just this bookmark. Let's say if I'm on the next frame over, on frame 14, I hit go to bookmark, it'll give me that bookmark only. And I can jump between bookmarks using these ones: previous bookmark, next bookmark. You can edit your bookmarks using this one. If you want to change the color, you want to change the name, you can remove the bookmarks using this. You can quick import and quick export. What this does is very much like the copy animation or copy pose. It'll save it to a temporary file. That way you can copy them and paste them into another Maya scene without having to actually save out a file and navigate to a folder. Same with import and export, except if you do it through these normal ones, it'll ask you to save it to an actual file. You know, it's handy for handing them off to other people, and not necessarily like from Maya session to Maya session. Sorry, guys. The bookmarks panel. This little thing allows you to tear it off, so it's a floating window. And you can do everything you can in like this menu right here, just in this little UI. So, oh, my bad. 25. All right, cool. So this will allow you to go to the bookmark. This will allow you to set the ins and outs. So let's say I want my start frame to be 5 instead. Oh no, I'm sorry. This nudges it by 1 frame. Nudge left and nudge right, and you can nudge it by a few more if you want, just by, you should be able to right click, I think. You can change like the in and out through here, but, oh no, I'm sorry, I think it's this one. Wait, where is it? I was just using this today. This is the in, this is the out. You can nudge it right, you can nudge it left, and then you can set the time, you can set the bookmark range if you change your time slider for some reason. So let's say you change it that way, and then you can set it like this. Oh, I'm sorry. God. You have to select it first, but yeah. You set it through selecting it, sorry. There we go. Ugh. Yes, there we go, cool. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the bookmarks panel. I've found this one most useful in, like I said, in longer shots, and especially if there are, you know, characters entering and exiting, or sometimes you can separate them in phrases or in beats, depending on like what phrases you have in your shot. You know, you could separate them that way. That's a good way to organize organize keyframes. Okay, cool. Let me turn off the visibility real quick. And then I think the last thing we're going to go over is playback. So this playback button, I personally haven't really found a use for it just because of the way that I work. I know some of the people that I've worked with, you know, find it really useful. So for some reason though, I might have to report this one, but whenever I right click on the play keys, I get the workspace. I don't get the extra options. To get the extra ones, you actually have to unfold it by using this little triangle. That's just me anyway. Maybe it's different for you. Maybe it's a bug in my mind. I don't know. But what this does is, by default, right, it'll play only the color of the frame of the key that you're on, right? This is the default button, right? So let's say frame 4 is green. Oh no, I'm sorry. Let's make that yellow. There. Yeah, yellow, 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 and yellow. So if I'm on a red key, if I hit this, it'll play. Wait, maybe I'm mistaken. That might be this one. Yeah, there we go. This second one will only play the color of the key that you're on, right? This one will only play keyframes. So let's say if these are breakdowns, right? These won't be included. This will only play keyframes. It won't play in-betweens either. Or actually, you know what? Let's see if it'll count breakdowns as keyframes. Let's make this obvious. Let's make all these red, and then let's make this chunk breakdowns. Let's see what that happens. Okay, so it'll still read that. Yeah, okay. So it'll still treat breakdown keys as keyframes. There you go. Okay. So this one, this is pretty much just the play button. Plays real time. This one, you can see there are dots that represent like the time. This will play every 2 frames. This will play every 3 frames. And this will play every 4 frames. What this is really good for is when you're in early stages and you're a layered animator, you go straight to splining. You don't block it in step keys, or you know, you like to pose the character in one pose and then pose like the character in another keyframe. Like you're straight to golden poses and then breaking it down from there. You know, using play by 4s is a great way to look at it, especially when you're in early stages. And I believe that's it. Those are all the tools we'll be covering today. There's a bunch of extra tools here that we'll be going over next week. I don't use all of them, I'll admit, but there's a lot of useful stuff here. I've gone over these ones like a little bit, but I can go over those ones again. You know, there's not a lot of tools outside of the extra tools that we'll be covering next week, so I'll try and find maybe something that I can demo or something. Yeah, like a bouncing ball or a walking ball or something. Oh, and I'll try and find out. I'll try and find a good example for the object space for motion trail. But yeah, those are pretty much the tools for today. Thanks, guys. Did you guys have any questions? I'll turn everything on now. Feel free to unmute yourselves if you guys have any questions. Cool.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
About that one, you said it's the 10th pivot, I think.
I'm sorry, what?
The 10th pivot, the test pivot.
Oh, the temp pivot, yeah.
Yeah. How will it affect with the key? Like if you don't have like an offset control? will it affect it so much, too much?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
I think when you use it like on the control,
Uh-huh.
will it affect too much the key on the graph editor or something like that?
Oh yeah, it will. Definitely it will. Okay, so let's say this for example, right? And then let's say I have a temp pivot over here, and I rotate it like this. You can see how much it affects the keys in the graph editor. It affects it a lot. It's basically what this is doing is it's calculating this point in space, and it's kind of translating that into the parent space that this ball is in. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can see how much it affects the graph editor. It affects it a lot. That's not just something that's, it's, even though it's called a temporary pivot, the only temporary thing about it is the pivot that you're moving it at. The keys or the position that you're moving it to, that's very much going to stay.
Oh.
Okay, cool. Do you guys have any suggestions? Thank you guys, by the way, for showing up consistently. As you know, I guess as a bonus to that, if there's something that you want to see me walk through next week, I'll ask you guys, since you guys have been showing up. If there's something you guys want to see me walk through next week, you can let me know now if you have it off the top of your head, or if not, you could just put it in Slack or message me and let me know, and then I'll try and have it prepared for Monday. Right? Today's
I'd say
Wednesday.
like extra tools to explore besides Animbot.
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I could try and do that. There are a few that I use outside of this. EB Labs a little bit. You may have seen me use like my quick align tool. Let me see, what else do I use? You mean tools just for animation?
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much just.
Okay. I have, yes, okay. There are even some small scripts that I use that I might be able to actually give you guys too. I have a script that creates null nodes. I'll explain it next week. But let me take that into my notes. Let me see, extra tools, null node group, script, rename script, quick align, EB Labs maybe. Control creators. Comet rename. Piranha. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll go through. I'll go through my my toolbar, and then I'll show you guys a bunch of the tools bunch of the other tools that I use or that I've found helpful. And a lot of the ones that I'll be bringing up, best thing about it is they're all free. Maybe aside from EB Labs, I'll even try and track down the links for you guys too. That way, I can provide it to you. You guys can download them if you want. Cool. Yeah. Is there anything else that you guys might want to see for next week? Anything you guys might want to see me walk through? Oh, okay. Guess not. Okay. In that case, I will see you on Monday.